So, I ended up staying up until around 6 in the morning today. And one of the last things I did before falling asleep was to start work on this new styrofoam block drawing. And then I think I finished the back and the top at a later point. Possibly. I'm not entirely sure because I ended up being tired for most of the day. But I am grateful to say that I was able to attend that extra credit opportunity that was offered by Dr. French, my national security professor, for attending a Zoom meeting on NATO's intervention in Kosovo. During a Clinton era conflict within Serbia. That at some point involved ethnic cleansing. I'm not entirely sure on the group that was ethnically cleansed, but I have an impression that it involved violence against Muslim or Arab groups within Serbia. Or at least that was one of the groups that were targeted in that conflict. Despite falling asleep during that PowerPoint Zoom presentation, I was able to come up with a good question to ask at the very end of the presentation, which involved asking about what was so different between what made the international response to the Kosovo crisis so different from the international response to ongoing crises, such as the ongoing unrest in Myanmar following a recent military coup that, in my mind, for me at least, creates parallels to that attack on the Capitol that happened early this year. and has on at least 2 occasions made me worry at least briefly about what may have been, as in maybe there was a possibility that we would now be facing what people in Myanmar are now facing. The crucial difference was that it didn't involve the military. At least not to the extent of active military service members. Mostly anyway. The still ongoing violence against Arabs in Israel and surrounding areas, with some violence against Jews and other residents of Israel, but there's more violence against Arabs. Arabs are facing oppression within Israel and especially Gaza. And the ongoing mistreatment of Uyghurs in China, in Pacific, a certain province, but I'm not entirely, I'm thinking more that the name of the province starts with an X, but I'm not 100% sure on what the name of the province is that has large Uyghur populations. And basically the response to that question was that the Kosovo crisis intervention that involved NATO was par for the course for the Reagan administration, in that the United States is sort of the world protector in a sort of sense. The same reason for the intervention in Somalia. I'm just glad I was able to make it to the extra credit event. I was 3 minutes late because something goofy happened to my laptop where the screen went black and then the screen resolution was severely reduced. So I powered off my laptop by holding up down on that button until it blipped off. Then I booted it back up. I had concerns that the laptop wouldn't boot back up to a point, and then that I would be late, that it wouldn't boot up in time. And I know that if it does boot up, it takes a minute or two for the Windows 10 program to warm up, which made me contemplate opening up the Zoom meeting on my phone. This one, but the one I'm using to film. But I ultimately decided not to, because then I would have had to download a Zoom app, I presume. This makes me suspect that there's no more unique Dale exclusive buildings. I now just have them all. Well, I got another of that purely cultural building. I'm pretty much on the tail end of the fairies chapter, I think. Today was the day of my antigen test and my mini grad walk ceremony. Both took place at the Cirque, but at different parts of it. The antigen test took place within the ice rink, starting at around 4 p.m., because that's the appointment I picked. And the mini grad walk took place within the main track and event room for the Cirque, starting at around, it was supposed to be at 5 p.m., but in reality it started at around 5:15 p.m. They ran a little late. I put on my cap and gown, though obviously put the gown on first, and ended up wearing basically this. I wore the shorts because I think now it's a little too hot to wear full-length pants. And I wore that polo, this one to be exact, because I couldn't find the blue one. There was a point in which I contemplated not wearing a shirt at all, but then more of my chest would have been visible, and I don't think that would have been appropriate. I could get away with wearing the shorts because the gown covered most of my legs. Except maybe while walking, but even then it's warmer temperatures now. When I went out for lunch at around 12:40 p.m., so not too long after the extra credit event, that started at 11 in the morning. I was particularly excited to go to lunch, where I got this peach yogurt. But I primarily got chili cheese dogs, which made me excited because they rarely showcase that. This is the lunch I got from the Harrison Dining Hall. And then I went and got dinner at Harrison Dining Hall. And this is a sort of late night dinner. More like dinner than the previous ones, which were pretty much just snacks, because I ended up feeling pretty full after eating 3 chili dogs. So I saved this. Getting this plus the 3 chili cheese dogs, ended up with a tray that could only close this way at most. Plus, I also got a thing of what I think was supposed to be white bean chili, but it's not what I expected for a chili. It looks more like a cream of broccoli soup, which weirded me out, so right before I started filming this, when I went down to see if there were more leftover snacks, there was no RA or resident assistant on duty at the front desk of the Eagle Hall lobby. In regards to the antigen test, it involves a nasal swab. It's supposed to be short, 5 short swabs for each nasal. Now, I'm pretty sure just about everyone has at one point picked their nose, but the nasal swab thing brings it to the next level. You're supposed to shove it up deep enough so that you feel resistance, which I tried to do. The short little stick thing with a sort of Q-tip end at one point, and the other end basically consisting of the equivalent of a lollipop stick. It was basically the equivalent of a lollipop, except instead of a lollipop candy, it was basically a Q-tip on one end, and the end of a lollipop stick on the other. You shove the Q-tip end up and try to do 5 circles, one nostril at a time, which I tried my best to do, but during it, I was afraid of accidentally penetrating it all the way up into my brain, that sort of thing. And then afterwards, there were concerns regarding potentially giving yourself a bloody nose, from inserting something that deep into your nose, considering I got a bloody nose days before this. Probably because I rubbed my nose because it was itchy. And then there was the grad walk. The fans in the stands consisted mostly of family members, which I think is supposed to be the intent of that, but there were also some cats and dogs, a cutout of Biden, which I wholeheartedly supported. And there was a cutout of Waldo. And he stuck out like a sore thumb because, first of all, he's a cartoon character, so they stick out like sore thumbs next to real people. And he has a pretty distinct outfit. One Halloween I went trick-or-treating as him. With potentially something extra. And this is the yogurt I got when I got my dinner at Harrison Dining Hall. Around 6:30ish p.m. I pretty much fell asleep after each meal today. I didn't really feel any energy until pretty much just now. I currently have about $10.61 in dining points. So I should be all set for not wasting any this semester. In previous semesters, I would waste less than $1 because there'd be nothing for me to buy with it. But this time I could probably just simply use a bit of cash to cover the difference. I'm assuming this is the last fairy quest, which is probably good for me. I have thoughts of declining this one, but then I might never get it again, and who knows, there's a possibility of me hitting that 125% level, but then I would probably be having deficits of coins and supplies. In regards to the mini grad walk, basically, this is what I was given to indicate my negative result for the antigen test. When I went in for the antigen pool test, because a whole bunch of people did it at once, essentially. I was initially given a yellow Darien Lake wrist identifier. And I call it that because that's what I remember. That's how I remember them. From back when I went to Camp Northridge in during elementary/middle school during those summers. And whenever we went to a water park or amusement park, upon getting admission, you'd be given something like that to indicate that you had paid, essentially. These were my fans in the stands. I spent some time trying to search them out within the bleachers during the half of the back half of the main track and event room where the mini grad walk took place. I think they did that before the virtual commencement so that we would ultimately have something resembling an in-person graduation ceremony. For it, there was this roughly 5 to 8 minute video that the president presented wearing a special gown. The video talked about how we persevered in the face of this unprecedented year and in face of this pandemic. Luckily for me, at no point did I get COVID, at least so far. The main difference that the pandemic made for me was that I stayed in my dorm room a whole lot more. Instead of spending my free time within the Drake Memorial Library as I did previously, I spent it here basically. I was given the seat number 16, a relatively low seat number, so I was part of the second group to be called up to have my name recited and for there to be a few photo ops. I pretty much made them read out my entire name, first, middle, then last, instead of what is typically associated as your full name, just the first and last. And there's a reason for that. There's only a few people in the world that share my first and last name. And typically, if your middle name gets mentioned at all, it's as the initial for it. I didn't do any phonetic spelling for it because it's not hard to pronounce Tyler James Mackey, but The last name may be a bit hard to spell. In fact, at one point I was asked to spell it out. Mackey. Though some may think it's spelled Mackie, but that's not how you spell it. As it turns out, these fans in the stands, they were not present within the bleachers based off of pictures I picked online. Because the cardboard cutouts, I accidentally at one point scraped this hand a bit while bringing them back from the circ when the mini grad walk ended around 6 p.m. I made sure to wash it out with water because I know how potentially serious infections can be. After I got my dinner at Harrison Dining Hall, I made a stop at the Nest to get 2 of these. Hence why I now have 1061 in dining points. And when I registered, I was given this special mask, which I pretty much wore for the rest of the day. And also, before the actual ceremony started, I was given an opportunity for a photo op and given this degree cover, which at this point doesn't actually contain my degree, but here's the insides of it.